Oh my, I'm feeling great. Give me the mic.
My tipsy mother-in-law snatched the microphone from my friend during her speech, and I unexpectedly started her own. My father-in-law Mark was drunkenly making a scene with relatives. And to top it off, Ingrid gave a speech that mockingly targeted me. What did I ever do to deserve this? Why do I have to endure all this? I almost burst into tears when my niece's comment dramatically changed the atmosphere of the room. My name is Naomi, a 48-year-old who's put on quite a bit of weight, tagging along with my food-loving husband Trevor. The infuriating part was that he shed weight effortlessly, with just a bit of exercise.
Jealous? Now I can eat even more.
It made me so mad. I thought about swapping his dinners with lard for a week. I love him, but right now, I hate his metabolism. Determined to slim down and make him fall for me all over again, I find myself still enjoying delicious meals. Oh well. I married Trevor, a year younger than me, 5 years ago. We hit it off quickly, moving from dating to marriage in no time. But then, the real challenge began. When we went to announce our marriage, my mother-in-law complained, "Why marry someone older who can't even have kids?" And my father-in-law let out a disappointed sigh.
Wished for a younger bride.
They were rude from the get-go. Trevor warned me his home was like a den of evil. His mom was always harsh on his girlfriend, driving away a past partner he could have married. His dad, a womanizer who had multiple affairs, showed no interest in his wife. Their marriage was rocky, to say the least. His dad's wish for a younger bride was probably to have some eye candy at home. Despite their strong opposition, Trevor suggested we marry without their approval. But I couldn't just do that. I visited his parents multiple times to get their blessing. I loved him and naturally wanted to get along with his family. We didn't want to marry with them opposed to it. Finally, they accepted our marriage, and we registered our union. One day, my mother-in-law Ingrid said something chilling. "I was always bullied by my mother-in-law, so I decided I'd bully my son's wife." Her casual demeanor as she said this sent shivers down my spine. It was never about the age difference. She just wanted someone to bully. No wonder Trevor's previous girlfriends were mistreated for no reason. I decided to keep a safe distance. But then, she interfered with our wedding planning, insisting on including her opinions. Why should they have a say? They are not even contributing financially, I thought. However, friends who were already married told me they also considered their in-laws' opinions. It seemed like a common practice to respect the spouse's parents to some extent. I mean, I get it, kinda. It's a big day for their beloved son. Trevor says I could ignore them, but I couldn't just do that. So reluctantly, I agreed to at least listen to them. But I soon regretted my decision. They complained our chosen venue was too expensive, pushing for a place run by a friend of my mother-in-law, a shabby place with bad reviews. Trevor firmly rejected it. But then, they started commenting on the bride's attire, demanding it be cheaper. Ingrid even said I could use her old wedding dress to save money, claiming it would be a waste to spend on something new. As if I'd wear something that's probably covered in cobwebs from sitting around for years. I knew she just didn't want the bride to be the center of attention, so I flat out refused. She kept making all sorts of suggestions, but I knew our wedding would be a disaster if I agreed to any of them. It was a parade of ridiculous proposals, so I ended up rejecting almost all of them. Looking back, Maybe that ignited her mean streak even more. Right up until the last minute, she was like, "Have a destination wedding so we can travel." Or, "If you don't listen to me, I won't attend." Despite all that, Trevor and I somehow managed to get to our wedding day. Then, on the day of the wedding, Ingrid showed up in a funeral dress, not a formal black suit, but something that looked unmistakably like mourning attire. It felt like she was saying she didn't recognize our wedding. 2 weeks before, she'd said, "I'm not going to your wedding." So I told her, "Then please don't come." Maybe that rubbed her the wrong way. She didn't even show up in the dressing room. And suddenly she was sitting with our relatives. It was too late to ask her to leave without ruining the mood of the venue. But to anyone watching, it was clear that the bride and mother-in-law weren't getting along. My friends and relatives all looked troubled. As the wedding ceremony went on, the groom's relatives started acting up. They were completely drunk, heckling during the movie my husband's friend had made. Of course, we asked the staff to escort that relative out, but even my father-in-law was smashed, waving around a bottle of liquor brought by the relatives as if it were a flashlight. He even shouted, "Hey, waiter, another beer!" as if we were in a bar. Some were escorted out, saying they felt sick. The staff did their best to keep the ceremony going, but my guests were all horrified by the chaos. Embarrassed, my husband and I spent most of the ceremony with our heads down. It was a nightmare. Then, during my friend's speech as a representative of my friends, the unexpected happened. My tipsy mother-in-law suddenly said, "Oh my, I'm feeling great. Give me the mic," and snatched it from my friend. "Now, let me, the groom's mother, say a few words." Trevor and I were stunned. She was so natural in her movements that even the staff were confused, wondering if this was part of the program. "So, about Naomi. I heard she's been a hard worker since she was little." Surprisingly, her comments weren't bad. I didn't want to make a scene by cutting her off if she wasn't saying anything harmful. Maybe it was better to act as if this was planned all along. The staff and Trevor asked if we should stop her, but I decided to see how it went. "She lost her father when she was young. Then her mother and her sister, who was 10 years older, raised her. That sister passed away recently from illness. Naomi is a remarkable woman who has experienced hardships unimaginable to my son." Her speech wasn't bad for a while. She acknowledged my difficult life, including my parent passing, and how I managed to go to college with support from my family and sister. It was a heavy topic for a wedding, but all true. Just when I thought she might have a good side, about 30 minutes in, she said, "But don't you think her parents and sister dying young is because she's a jinx?" I was shocked to hear this when they came for the wedding greeting. "Maybe she's just an attention seeker bragging about her hardships. She probably doesn't realize we are not interested in such stories." Everyone, not just me, was dumbfounded by her laughter and words. The shock was amplified because everyone had been drawn into my past, only to be mocked by her sudden turnaround. All she did was expose and ridicule my painful past in front of everyone. During the wedding greeting, I had to talk about my family because I couldn't hide the fact that my parents weren't around. I never intended it to be a sob story. If it were possible, I'd still want to meet my living family members. Why would I ever boast about being unfortunate? I knew it would ruin my bridal makeup, but I couldn't help it. Tears started to fall. Then, in the dead silence of the hall, my niece Erica, A sophomore in high school spoke up loudly. Ingrid, thinking her speech was well received, was smugly saying,
"Glad you all enjoyed it."
But then, Erica stood up and said,
No, you've got it all wrong, old lady.
"You're here talking about Naomi's misfortunes. Well, what's your point? Look at this awkward atmosphere."
Who are you calling old lady? I'm the mother of the groom. You're so disrespectful.
Ingrid retorted, clearly outraged. Erica snorted. "Who's the disrespectful one? You come to a wedding in funeral clothes and try to make a mockery of the bride. Well, nobody's laughing, so you're just embarrassing yourself. Not only are you disrespectful, but you can't even read the room. Aren't you ashamed? Even a young girl like me can see how embarrassing this situation is. Maybe with age, you'll regress a bit." She raised her hands and shrugged her shoulders as my mother-in-law's face turned beet red.
Oh my gosh! Unbelievable! How dare you talk to me like that? Naomi, doesn't your niece know how to speak to her elders?
She snapped, glaring at me. I have to say, my niece is right. Your speech wasn't even part of the program, and instead of bringing some cheer, you interrupted my friend's speech with your boring talk. It's just unpleasant.
Yo, Mom, I don't know if you were trying to pick on Naomi or what, but can't you see everyone's just appalled? Right now, you're not just picking on her. Like Erica said, you're just being a boring, senseless person.
Her face went from red to tomato red, as if it could get any redder.
Unbelievable! Unbelievable! Uneffing believable! I'm your mother, Trevor. How dare you embarrass me like this in front of everyone?
It just seems like you brought this embarrassment on yourself. Erica chimed in without missing a beat, while the groom's side of the family was too drunk to notice. My guest began to chuckle. You know what? I thought I'd respect my elder and stay quiet. But since you asked, old lady, Erica said, suddenly smiling innocently. Ingrid looked puzzled. That dress you're wearing still has a price tag on it.
What?
My mother-in-law gasped as the whole erupted in laughter. It seemed everyone had noticed the tag. No one from her side pointed out, probably because they were mostly men and not interested in her dress. No one had bothered to tell her. Wearing a funeral dress to a wedding with a tag still on? Are you getting ready for the next world? You are well prepared, as expected from an elder. But isn't that a bit premature? People like you tend to live long lives, Erica said, laughing gently. My mother-in-law finally seems to feel embarrassed and frantically tried to hide the tag. My father-in-law, seeing this, pointed at her and laughed.
Oh, you're ready to kick the bucket already. Ha ha ha.
My husband and I, and probably most of the guests, could see her anger, but he and everyone else on his side remained oblivious.
Well, I guess I will find a new wife then,
he joked, and a relative chimed in.
What about Nancy, the hostess? That's right,
he agreed, and then all got carried away, completely forgetting about Ingrid.
You too? This is unbelievable. Having fun at my expense in a place like this?
Just when I thought she was about to explode, she grabbed a beer bottle from a nearby table and marched towards her husband, bottle raised high, declaring,
I won't forgive you.
He turned pale at the sight. Everyone thought we were on the brink of a police-worthy disaster, when suddenly my niece Erica dashed over and drenched them both with the table's alcohol. Cool off with this. Are you still planning to cause a scene at people's wedding? Staff, Please escort these people out. The crowd, initially stunned by the unfolding chaos, snapped back to reality at her command, and the staff quickly restrained them. When they asked if they should escort my in-laws out, both my husband and I smiled and said, "Please do." Our wedding ended amidst this commotion, but later, my brother-in-law, who's been like a father to me since my sister passed away, joined us to confront my in-laws. He was especially furious about the wedding fiasco and determined to make them pay for the expenses. Initially, they tried to shrug it off, saying they were drunk or it wasn't right to settle it with money. However, when my brother-in-law, a former boxer and still muscular, grabbed Mark by the collar, he quickly agreed to pay. He must have been really scared, as he paid the full wedding cost in cash that very day. At the same time, my husband declared we were cutting ties with them. He apologized, saying he should have done this sooner, but I couldn't blame him. I was wrong to even momentarily hope for a pleasant speech from her. I want us to become a stronger couple by overcoming these hardships, I thought. Later, we heard that my father-in-law became wheelchair-bound, and my mother-in-law, suffering from rheumatoid arthritis, reached out for help. But my husband ignored her plea, saying,
"They're not my parents anymore."
"I recently passed by their old house, now demolished. Maybe they're in a facility, but I doubt they have the funds for both. Perhaps Ingrid is living somewhere like a park. I thought I saw someone like her there recently. But they are strangers to us now. Unlikely we'll ever meet again. As for us, we are living our lives peacefully. 2 years later, we used our refunded wedding money and our savings to have a wedding ceremony in an Italian chapel and a belated honeymoon. It was a redo of our wedding. We didn't invite anyone from my husband's side, but my friends and family came, making it a beautiful ceremony. Erica said she was glad our wedding didn't end on a sour note and gave us an expensive gift and a caricature she drew of us, showcasing her art school skills. I felt bad accepting such a pricey gift, but she said, "I see you more as my real sister, so please accept it." How sweet of her. When she gets married, I will repay her kindness 3 or 4-fold, maybe with some furniture. Wearing a wedding dress again at my age was a little embarrassing, but my husband said I looked even more beautiful than before. I had a bridal spa treatment, but I'm sure I haven't changed that much. He's just being kind. However, after the ceremony, we loosened up and indulged in his love for buffets, and at 48, I've gained weight quickly. My husband joked,
"You've changed. How about going back to the old you?"
I snapped back, "Hush, you're thinning on top, you know." That's our way of teasing each other. We hope to be a couple that can always poke fun at each other, just like best friends. Since it was a late marriage, I want to lose weight to live long and healthy with my husband. Health is important after all. Now, off for a walk with my husband today.
"We will terminate business dealings with your company." "Huh? What are you talking about?" "Leah's father runs the parent company of a significant client we've been dealing with." "So, what does parent company even mean?" "You're the parent company, and Ryan is part of the subsidiary. What you say no to, Ryan says no to as well. That's the relationship between the parent company and its subsidiaries." "What?" "So, that means we're going to lose several major clients." "Yes, that's correct." "You explained it well." It was at this moment that my mother-in-law's expression changed. I am Leah. I've been married to my husband Ryan for 4 years. My husband helps with the family business. His family runs a wholesale food and beverage business, and under his father, who is the president, my husband is learning the day-to-day business as managing director. Since getting married, I've been handling the accounting at my father-in-law's company, contributing in my own small way, and leading busy days for the sake of the company. The company's performance may not be at its peak, but we can afford some luxuries. Perhaps that's why my mother-in-law has never worked. I used to think she was responsible for all the household chores, but she actually hired a housekeeper and led a leisure life. The reason? It's because I moved in here. It's a waste to have a housekeeper when you have a new bride living here. She can handle household chores since she's living here, right? At the sudden remark, I, a timid person, lowered my head. And here, no one would go against my mother-in-law's will. I had hoped that my husband would at least argue back, but he too simply looked down without saying anything. My father-in-law never disobeys my mother-in-law, perhaps because he was adopted into his wife's family. It was the first time since we started living together that I realized my husband couldn't stand up to his mother. Upbringing is a powerful thing, and for my husband, who had grown up with this as the norm since he was little, there's no inclination to argue with his mother. Since I became a bride, I've been consistently managing both the household chores at my in-laws' place and the company's operations without a break. Lately, the wholesale business has been facing tough times, and we can't afford to hire new employees. Saving money on hiring a housekeeper has allowed us to allocate more funds for our employees. My mother-in-law seems to regard me as a workhorse, I suppose. Thanks to long-standing relationship with suppliers that date back to my grandfather-in-law's time, the company somehow manages to keep going. According to my husband, his grandfather started the company from scratch and expanding the business all by himself. Since he didn't have a son to take over, he chose my promising father-in-law and married him to his only daughter, my mother-in-law, entrusting the company to them. My grandpa was a kind but strict man. He endured unreasonable treatment to protect the company. I really love my grandpa. I wish Julia could have met him. He was an unreliable husband, but he had a great smile on his face when he talked about his grandfather. Mom has a different kind of strictness than Grandpa. My husband spoke in the nonchalant manner. I am living under the exhausting reign of my mother-in-law. My husband seems detached from it all, as if it was someone else's business. I never imagined him this way before we started living together. When we were dating, he was a confident person who could clearly express his own opinions, and I found that admirable. However, in front of his mother, he becomes as quiet as a gentle lamb. In places where his mother is present, my husband is still the same as he used to be. And my father-in-law also has a vibrant work ethic at his company. However, when he returns home, he becomes silent and retires to his room hastily after dinner. Watching these two, I started to adopt the same behavior. Anyway, in my in-law's house, my mother-in-law is the queen. You absolutely cannot defy her. Let sleeping dogs lie. I made sure not to displease her. This is because I still carry the trauma of the early troubles when we first began living together.
Wait, what's this? It's salty.
I was the one who made the stew that she spat out.
I'm sorry.
You, can you even cook properly? Put more thought into nutrition. Do you want to send me to the hospital? No, I would never. It's barely edible, you know. I'm sorry. And you know, you all seem so poor. Overall, the meals are meager. Maybe it was a feast in your house, but for me, it's a simple meal. If you've come to my house as a bride, then prepare a meal that is appropriate for that. Yes, my mother-in-law complained endless while still finishing her meal. In front of me, my husband and father-in-law just put their spoons down and sat still. The only one eating the meal was my mother-in-law. It's really going to be a tough road ahead. A bride who can't even cook a decent meal is nothing short of embarrassing. Ryan, your taste is lacking. My mother-in-law's lecture must have lasted for an hour. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law complained and asked for 2 more servings of my stew. It's truly terrible, but we can't afford to waste ingredients, you know. In the end, my husband, father-in-law, and I were only allowed to touch our dinner after mother-in-law had devoured it. The 3 of us ate our meals in silence, without saying a word. Since then, I've been desperately trying not to provoke my mother-in-law's anger. Lately, do you feel like you're being accumulating fatigue? Are you okay? Yes, it was Kelly, one of the company's employees, who approached me. She showed concern for me as I lived in fear of my mother-in-law. Today was Kelly's last day at work. No, I'm fine. Thank you. You must be going through a lot with the company's president's wife, right? Well, I'm learning a lot, I guess. I tried to maintain a smile throughout, but I'm not sure if I was able to smile convincingly. According to the employees, this company also has its boom times. Sales were incomparably higher than they are now, and my mother-in-law experienced such a prosperous period and couldn't lower her standard of living. Hiring a housekeeper was a manifestation of that, as she never did any household chores herself. My mother-in-law, who loves shopping, frequently goes out and comes back with a lot of purchases. There's clearly a disconnect with the current state of the company. I've been feeling that as well. However, I'm not allowed to say anything about it. With my husband and father-in-law remaining silent, the current situation isn't going to change. If I make any statement that my mother-in-law doesn't like, it leads to a 1-hour-long lecture. Deciding to ignore it seems to be the only way to protect myself. Trying to adapt to the life in my in-law's house and the work at the company during the first year of my marriage was challenging. And now, after 3 years have passed, I'm facing a significant issue. It's been 4 years since I got married. My husband and I don't have any children. My mother-in-law, who desires an heir, naturally takes issue with this fact. Hey, office worker, how long do you intend to remain just an office worker? Or maybe you just be a housekeeper? She said that to me, and even if I didn't want to, I understood what she meant. I hate the weak part of myself that can't argue back and can only look down. My husband and father-in-law finished the dinner at an astounding speed and locked themselves in their rooms. I have no allies. Hey, look at this! Isn't it a baby in this commercial cute? Are you not prepared to become a mother? It's because you lack the determination that the baby won't choose you. Babies, you see, choose their parents when they are born. You are not chosen by the baby, huh? I'm sorry. What do you mean by I'm sorry? Do you think that apologizing will make everything okay? You must have grown up being spoiled. You haven't had a proper upbringing. Lately, I've been subjected to this kind of abuse every day. I want to go back home. I want to see my mom and dad, but I can't. I went against my parents' strong opposition and got married. I was registered as a runaway. I don't know how I can go to see them now. My parents and in-laws have not even met each other. I know that wholesaler well. I think Ryan is a very nice young man. But Ryan can't protect you, Leah. Ryan's mother is like the president of the company, and when Ryan has to choose between his mother and you, Leah, he won't be able to protect you. Upon hearing those words, I felt my blood boil. What do you know about Ryan, Dad? He's such a kind person. There's no one else like him. It's not about that. He can't do anything about it himself. The environment he's in is a monster. It's an unstoppable force. My father was desperately trying to make me understand. It infuriated me that my mother, who was nodding in agreement beside him, was taking his side. Mom, why are you siding with Dad? I want to get married. Why won't you support me? Leah, wake up. A marriage that the family doesn't bless is the beginning of unhappiness. That's enough. I stormed out of the house. If only I had listened to my parents back then, maybe this wouldn't have happened. I was so foolishly infatuated with Ryan. It's too late to ask for help now. I have to overcome this by my own. I have to try. I told myself that I would endure this life at all costs, but as a result, I was stalked by dizziness while at work, lost consciousness, and was taken to the hospital. When I woke up, nobody was there. I wished at least my husband had been here. Tears welled up uncontrollably. A nurse noticed me sobbing, silently took my hand and said, "You feel warm." To which I replied, "Your hand is warm too." A complete stranger had shown me kindness. That single act of holding my hand meant so much to me. During my 3 days in the hospital, no one came to visit. And on the day of my discharge, my in-laws and husband came. Absolutely useless, this wife. I thought she was pregnant, but it turns out it's exhaustion. We'll deduct the hospital expenses from your salary. No complaints, okay? What are you dawdling for? Hurry up and pack your things. Are you a family member? Let's go to the examination room. Oh, no need for that. This child is already someone else. I'm busy. I don't need to hear the doctors talk. Come on. Stop dragging your feet and let's go. My mother-in-law grabbed my arm and forcefully took me out of the hospital. And then, inside the car, she handed me a piece of paper. What is this? Just sign it. We're submitting it now. What do you mean? You can tell just by looking. Don't ask questions. Ryan, are you okay with this? Yeah. I held divorce documents in my hand. Ryan had already filled it out. Been thrown away after enduring for 4 years. To be discarded so easily like this, my heart pounded loudly. Don't go into a panic. We're kind-hearted. You know, we won't just cast you aside after the divorce. Be thankful because we'll see you off properly. Well, I wonder if my parents would accept me if I divorced. Even if they don't, I want to see my mom and dad again. Inside the swaying car, I finished signing the divorce papers. They were submitted by my mother-in-law and husband. They were accepted easily, and our marriage came to an end. With this, I'm bidding farewell to this baggage. You couldn't produce an heir no matter how much the time passed. I've been stuck with the defective product. Don't even think about alimony. Since I was the one fooled, I want to claim some money, to be honest. While in the car, my mother-in-law continued to say whatever she pleased. When we arrived at my parents' home, my father, who was in the yard, noticed us. He rushed over and embraced me, tears streaming down his face.
Welcome back. You've lost so much weight.
During my hospital stay, I stepped on the scale for the first time in a long while. To my surprise, I had lost 20 kilos from the time I got married. Dad, I'm so sorry. I tried my best, but I couldn't endure it. I got a divorce. I'm sorry for causing trouble. I didn't listen, and I'm sorry. You did well to come back. Take your time to rest. My mother, who seemed to have spotted my father and me, rushed over. She was barefoot, as she held me in her arms and cried. Her loud voice echoed in my ear. Ryan, what did you say to us? You promised that you would protect Leah no matter what. Huh? What are you talking about? What, you didn't know? Your parents ambushed Ryan after you left home. I thought their methods were sneaky from that time. They probably cornered the surprised Ryan, asking if he could make her daughter happy, right? Your parents waste their time on such nonsense. Corrected. Huh? What do you mean? My parents aren't fools. The real fool was me for believing in your idiot son without listening to my parents. I thought of myself as weak. I believe I couldn't say anything to my mother-in-law. My parents had come to see Ryan for my sake, and having their feelings dismissed like that truly angered me to my core. Take those words back. Take them back, you demon. Who are you addressing exactly? My mother-in-law put her hand forward to jump on me, but it was my mother who stopped her. Hey, you demon woman! Would you like to tangle with me? My mother grabbed my mother-in-law by the chest and pushed her as hard as she could. My mother is as strong as ever. I loved my mother, such a strong and kind mother. Don't touch me so casually, you paupers. Well, whatever. I've just come to return this useless daughter-in-law. Today, I've come all this way just to return this defective daughter-in-law. Really, she turned out to be the complete failure. Her parents should take responsibility. Saying that, my mother-in-law laughed crudely. I went out of my way to send a divorced woman home, but I wonder if she has any sincerity at all.
Sincerity, you say? Like what, for example?
Well, things like transportation expenses and various other mental distress, you see.
I see. It's about money, isn't it?
Even a poor person like you can't catch on, huh?
Poor person, you say? Well, people have different ways of thinking, I suppose. I'll show you my sincerity in my own way.
My father discreetly placed his hand into his breast pocket. I thought he was about to take out his wallet, but to my surprise, he had a smartphone on his hand. Then my father began making a call to someone.
Yes, thank you. Please inform all the groups. A company has just appeared and announced an immediate halt to our transactions.
My father hung up the phone after I gave him the name of my father-in-law's company. My in-laws seemed clueless about what had just happened.
This is my way of showing sincerity. Please accept it. Oh, I almost forgot to mention. I have the audacity to run the company myself. Let's get to know each other better from now on.
My father extended his business card, and both my father-in-law and husband were taken aback, and instantly their faces turned pale. Why didn't you tell us? This company is the parent company of the one we have dealings with, right? Was there any need to tell you? Your father's company has nothing to do with your lives, right? Well, yeah, but if we had known... Different attitude. Is that what you're after? I've had enough of that. Well, it did get us into trouble. No, sorry. What's this all about, Ryan? Don't apologize to this failure of a wife. Who cares about the parent company? Only my mother-in-law seems to be clueless in this situation. She's never worked a day in her life and can't even comprehend the concept of a parent company or group companies. Our business dealings with your household will be terminated. Huh? What are you talking about? Leah's father runs the parent company of a significant client we've been dealing with. So, what does parent company even mean? You're the parent company, and Ryan is part of the subsidiary. What you say no to, Ryan says no to as well. That's a relationship between the parent company and its subsidiary. What? So, it means we're losing several major clients. Yes, that's correct. You explained it well. It was at this moment that my mother-in-law's complexion changed. Oh, I see now. So there's still a use for you, right? Come on, Leah, let's get alone again. Mom, we're already divorced. Don't mess around. It's probably all your fault, Ryan. This wouldn't have happened if you had looked into her background. The big money was supposed to come in. You're completely useless. You shouldn't have been born. Ryan has no one to protect him. I had my parents on my side. Considering the environment he grew up in, I do feel some sympathy. However, I can't forgive him for letting me sink with him. My mother-in-law, in her excitement, rushes to where Ryan is crouching and starts hitting him. My father-in-law is completely escaping from reality, not defending his own son or trying to stop his wife. A neighbor heard the commotion and called the police, who arrived a short time later. It was my mother who stopped my mother-in-law's violence before the police arrived, but she hit Ryan with such force that his forehead was bleeding and his left eye was swollen. My mother-in-law was arrested on the spot for the violence, with blood on her fist. Ryan was taken to the hospital by ambulance. I haven't seen my mother-in-law or Ryan since then. My father-in-law has visited our home once. By that time, his company, which had already lost business deals with major clients, had gone out of business. However, when I saw my ex-father-in-law after a long time, he had a very cheerful expression on his face. He bowed deeply and apologized for what happened 4 years ago. He now seems to be showing up at various volunteer activities as a senior citizen staff member. And most surprising of all, he was divorced from my mother-in-law. My ex-father-in-law said he had a change of heart when he saw my father trying to protect me. His last mission is to help his son break free from brainwashing, and I heard he's attending counseling with Ryan. I received one letter from Ryan, but I couldn't bring myself to read it, so I sent it back. Despite going through 4 difficult years, nothing he says can make my heart waver. He remained my enemy for life. As for my former mother-in-law, she's reportedly gone missing. It was later discovered that my former mother-in-law had a favorite entertainer she frequented and that she had owed tens of thousands of dollars to him. Her company went bankrupt, and she lacked the financial means to repay it after the divorce. She disappeared in a hurry, as thought she was on the run. It's been 8 years since then, and I'm currently pregnant. 2 years ago, I met a man and got married, enjoying our happy days together. And recently, something surprising happened. I saw my former father-in-law in a certain place. "Hey, get lost! It's not for show!" she yelled, rummaging through a trash bin. I could only see her from behind, but I could never forget the voice. She was living on the streets. I kept my distance as we walked by, and the full odor, unbearable for a pregnant woman, lingered. My current husband asked, "Are you okay?" and took my hand. I replied, "Thank you, your hand, it's warm." My former mother-in-law yelled, "What? You're pregnant? Children, they easily betray their parents. Oh, children. Oh, what did I do? I raised them with all my heart." And continued to shout. My husband said, "Leah, let's hail the taxi." My husband, wary of the crazy old woman, immediately stopped the cab and let me in first. My husband said, "There are all sorts of people in the world," and showed concern for my mental state. I genuinely feel sorry for my former mother-in-law now. People don't change that easily, because I know that everything is a result of the seed we sow. I've made a strong commitment in my heart to walk a path completely different from hers. That's my firm resolve.
Welcome home, Trevor. You must be tired from your business trip. My husband, Trevor, who had always acted like a tyrant at home, had just returned from a business trip. As soon as he saw me, he twisted his face in disgust.
Your face just darkens my mood. Seeing you is so depressing."
He then started eating the dinner I had prepared, lounging in the living room. I stood by him like a maid. After finishing his meal, he headed to the bus, flinging his suit at my face as I went to get his change of clothes.
"Hey, maid, take this to the cleaners."
Yes, I squatted to pick up the suit, feeling crushed by being called a maid. While checking the pocket before sending it for cleaning, my fingers brushed against a piece of paper. Unfolding it, my eyes widened in shock. At that moment, I realized everything. Ah, I see how it is. Well, if that's the case, I have my own plan. Soon, he would be begging me, his face pale with fear. "My name is Brianna, a 31-year-old working from home as a web designer, married for 2 years. Trevor and I met at a matchmaking party 3 years ago. He is a sales rep at a small company and used to play rugby. His assertive approach initially seemed manly and reliable to me, who had a little experience in love. A year into dating, he proposed, and I accepted, dreaming of a happy family life.
"I can't wait to start a happy family with you, Brianna."
Me neither, Trevor. I'm looking forward to our future.
"Well, first off, you should quit your job."
What? I worked at a big web production company then. I was a lead there and felt fulfilled. I actually want to keep working even after we got married.
"Of course, you have to quit your job. No way I'm going to support a wife who just slacks off at home."
I felt a bit irked by his comment, but I decided to let it go for now and asked, "Why do I have to quit?"
"If you keep working after we are married, it's like I'm not man enough to support you. It's embarrassing, so just quit your job, okay?"
He had some rather old-fashioned views about men being men. I never expected him to go this far though. But
"Your job can be done from home, right? So just work from home. End of discussion."
in the end, I couldn't oppose him and reluctantly left my job. I decided to become a freelance web designer working from home. Honestly, I did miss my old job, but I couldn't stand up to Trevor. Later, he and I rented an apartment and started living together. However, soon after we got married, I was shocked to discover something. Trevor couldn't handle basically any work around the house. We hadn't lived together before getting married. I had been living alone, while he had always lived with his parents, even after starting his career. Maybe that's why he couldn't even do basic things like cooking or using the washing machine. Initially, I thought he would learn in time, but he showed no interest in doing so. He would just dump all the housework on me and spend his time as he pleased, often playing video games. My frustration with him kept growing. One day, I couldn't take it anymore and decided to talk to him. "Hey Trevor, could you please start doing a bit more housework?"
What did you say?
He sat up from the couch where he'd been lounging and scrolling through his phone, looking annoyed. "I'm saying you need to help out more with the housework, Trevor."
Why?
He looked genuinely confused, so I replied in surprise. "Because we live together. You need to share in the housework."
What are you talking about, Brianna? It's always been understood that housework is wife's job.
His casual dismissal confused me. "Are you being serious? It's normal for both spouses to share housework. I'm working too, you know."
But you're just playing around on the computer at home. Calling that a job is an exaggeration. It doesn't matter whether you work outside or not. Housework is a wife's responsibility.
That's not right. His dependable and manly nature, which I admired, turned out to be just a facade of a domineering husband. No matter what I said, he wouldn't listen. So I ended up doing all the housework. Time passed, and about a year into our marriage, Trevor started coming home late and being away more often, saying he was busy at work. His attitude at home became increasingly arrogant. One night, when he didn't return home even past 11 p.m., I finished the housework and went to bed early. Then, late at night, he came home and woke me up.
Hey, Brianna, wake up.
"What? What's going on, Trevor?" I asked, rubbing my eyes, and he yelled at me.
How dare you sleep before your husband comes home? You are supposed to greet me with a smile when I return.
"But I tried to contact you, but you didn't respond, and I have work tomorrow."
No excuses. When I come home, you should greet me with a smile, have dinner and a bath ready.
"You're joking, right?"
Of course not. Now get up. I'm hungry, so make me some late night snacks.
I looked at the clock. It was past 2 a.m. At this hour? Give me a break.
Just make the snack. If you don't listen, we might as well get a divorce.
Shocked by his mention of divorce, I got up. Nervously, I made the snack as he instructed. He watched it with crossed arms until it was ready, then ate it with satisfaction.
After this, I'm going to take a bath, so get my towel and clothes ready.
Okay, got it. I felt like a maid. I kept trying to fulfill his demands, even though it was hard. Around that time, my freelance work became busier. Even though I was working from home, I finally had steady clients and was busy with deadlines. The stress of my demanding job, the need to be perfect in housework, and Trevor's tyrannical attitude were overwhelming. Before I knew it, I started suffering from chronic stomach pain. Trevor continued to be absent from home. When he did come home, he was usually drunk and treated me with disdain. There were no more outings or peaceful conversations as a couple. I even started thinking that it would be better if he didn't come home at all. I mean, all he would do at home is to act like a king. Then one day, I made a small mistake. I was feeling under the weather with a cold and forgot to buy a new pair of socks that Trevor had asked for.
Where are the new socks?
He asked irritably early in the morning. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to buy them. I've been feeling sick since yesterday.
How incompetent can you be? You're really useless.
He sighed and continued.
Go buy them now, and use your own money, of course.
But I've got a fever and a cold.
No excuses. This is why you're no good. Go buy them now.
Despite feeling dizzy, I was sent out in my pajamas to the supermarket. As I returned home with the socks, I cried. Why did I have to take all this? Doesn't he love me anymore? I couldn't stop my tears. Sometime later, Trevor said he was going on a business trip and left. I won't be yelled at by my husband tonight. I felt relieved, focused on my work, and settled for pizza for dinner. I finally had a relaxing evening. The next evening, he came home. Welcome home, Trevor. You must be tired from your business trip. I welcomed him saying so. But as soon as he saw me, he twisted his face in disgust.
Your face just darkens my mood. Seeing you is so depressing.
He then started eating the dinner I had prepared, lounging in the living room. I stood by him like a maid. After finishing his meal, he headed to the bath, flinging his suit at my face as I went to get his change of clothes.
Hey, maid, take this to the cleaners.
Yes. I squatted to pick up the suit, feeling crushed by being called a maid. While checking the pockets before sending it for cleaning, my fingers brushed against a piece of paper. Unfolding it, my eyes widened in shock. It was a hotel receipt. It seems to be for a cottage, or something like that. Why would he stay in a cottage when he was supposedly on a business trip? With trembling hands, I took out my phone and searched. The search results showed a cottage in the next state. So that's what it was. He was acting all high and mighty at home, but he was cheating on me. Well, in that case, I have a plan too. I quietly put away the receipt. That day, I acted as usual in front of him. The next day, I started taking action. I decided to hire a detective agency to investigate Trevor. I had my own job and couldn't follow him around or do the investigating myself. Plus, I didn't want to slip up and let him catch on. Luckily, I found a detective agency with reasonable prices and female detectives. 2 weeks later, I had all the evidence of his infidelity, like it was nothing. Photos of him entering a motel with a young woman I didn't know, kissing in his car. I couldn't help but pump my fist in victory. By that time, I had no love left for him. I was just happy to have the evidence. The detective agency stopped smiling wryly at me, began to speak. Ma'am, here's what we found from the investigation. I held my breath as she continued. The next day, after Trevor left for work, I packed my things. I called a moving truck and had them take my stuff to my parents' house. That night, as I relaxed at my parents' home, Trevor called. I ignored his calls, but he called repeatedly, what you would call bombarding me with calls. I just kept ignoring them. The next day, the calls continued, even in the daytime. Finally annoyed, I decided to answer. Hello?
Hey, where the hell are you? You left without saying a word.
I calmly replied to his barrage. I'm at my parents' house.
What? I didn't give you permission to go back there. Your stuff is gone too. What are you planning?
Why should I serve someone who called me a maid? I couldn't stand it anymore, so I left.
Why are you making a big deal out of this? Come back now and do the housework.
He yelled furiously, and I sighed before responding. I'm not coming back to that house.
What did you say?
I will be waiting at the cafe near your office after work. We can talk there. Bye. I said that, hung up, and smirked. All right, let's do this. I muttered and sent an email to someone. A few hours later, as promised, I waited at the cafe. Trevor arrived furious.
What do you mean by not coming home?
He blurted out aggressively as he sat down. Like I said on the phone, I can't be your wife anymore.
What? Are you planning to divorce me?
Yes, that's my intention. As I calmly answered, he was about to yell back, turning red, when suddenly his phone rang. Are you going to answer? It might be important. He answered the call with a disgruntled expression, and his face turned pale. After the call, he looked down, covering his mouth wide-eyed. What's wrong? Did they fire you after all?
Come again?
I stared straight at him as he turned to me. You got fired or demoted for messing with the daughter of a client CEO, huh? I hope they fired your ass. So this is what the detective agency had told me. That Trevor had been cheating with the daughter of a client, hiding the fact he was married. I had all the evidence.
Oh, what do you know about that? What's going on?
Well, I'm the one who reported it to your company.
What?
He was shocked, and I smiled while he stammered.
Do you realize what you have done?
Yes, I'm well aware. I also reported the details to the CEO. He was furious and wanted to see the evidence, so I gave him the photos.
You did what?
His phone rang again. When I urged him to answer, he did so tremblingly. From the phone, I could hear a young woman crying and yelling. It seemed like the CEO's daughter, his mistress, was losing it on the phone. Trevor, unable to say a word, hung up with a pale face. Poor thing, the other woman. She was just deceived by you.
When? When did you find out?
He asked, his voice quivering, and I answered calmly. Remember when you called me a maid and threw your suit at my face? There was a receipt for the cottage in that suit pocket. That's why I hired a detective. He was gaping in shock.
No, it's not like that. It was just a fling. I never planned to divorce you.
Oh, after all that arrogant behavior? I will never forgive you. As I glared at him, he suddenly started pleading.
I don't want to get fired. She said she will sue me for compensation. I won't be able to survive. Please, help me. Forgive me, Brianna.
At that moment, I splashed the water from my cup onto him.
What the hell?
This is nothing compared to what I've had to go through. I'm divorcing you, and I will be demanding $35,000 in compensation for your affair. Make sure you pay up, you jerk. Go to hell. He turned ashen and panicked. He was muttering,
I don't want a divorce. Please help me.
I looked at his pathetic state and regretted ever marrying such a man. Shaking off the clinging Trevor, I left the cafe alone. Later, my divorce from him was finalized. With the help of a lawyer, I received $35,000 in compensation for his infidelity right away. I got half of our assets in the settlement. The CEO, The father of his mistress was furious and ended business with his company. Trevor really got fired from his job. He was also sued by his mistress and forced to pay her compensation. Because of all this, Trevor ended up living in a rundown apartment, buried in debt, and working like a host day and night. I felt no sympathy for him. He got what he deserved. As for me, I used the alimony to move into a new apartment and live comfortably. My career is thriving, and I'm earning more now than when I was single. It's more than enough to live on my own. From now on, I want to take care of myself and carve out a bright future.